There are game-changing, franchise-altering monsters hiding in plain sight on day 2 of this draft, and the mainstream media is completely asleep at the wheel. We are talking about absolute draft heists that could instantly transform this roster from a promising group into a legitimate, terrifying powerhouse. The fact that some of these elite, game-wrecking physical freaks might fall right into our laps in the middle rounds is nothing short of mind-blowing. If you want the most hardcore, unfiltered football coverage on YouTube, hit that like button, share this video with a fellow diehard fan, and subscribe right now. Let's get one thing straight before we even dive into the madness of this draft board. Are the mainstream scouts even watching the same game tape that we are? Because when I look at the consensus rankings being pushed by the supposed experts, I am left completely frustrated, scratching my head, and honestly, a little bit thrilled. Thrilled because their ignorance is going to be our ultimate gain. Today, I am entirely focused on the absolute steals of day 2. Forget the obvious top 10 superstars and ignore those deep, late-round dart throws for just a second. I want to talk about the mid-round warriors. The players I am absolutely pounding the table for. The guys whose ceilings are so terrifyingly high that getting them in the second or third round feels like cheating the system entirely. Let's kick this off with a guy who is making me question the sanity of every draft analyst out there, Jacob Rodriguez. The linebacker out of Texas Tech is an absolute heat-seeking missile on the gridiron, and somehow, he is getting completely disrespected in these mock drafts. People are genuinely placing him behind C.J. Allen and Anthony Hill. Let me be unequivocally clear here. Jacob Rodriguez is easily the third best linebacker in this entire draft class. Even if you want to classify Auri as a pure linebacker, and throw Sonny Styles into that mix, Rodriguez is right there breathing down their necks. From a pure, raw football IQ and instinct perspective, he might actually be the smartest defender on the entire board. The tape does not lie, and his production was completely off the charts. He is a magnet to the football. He lives in the backfield, he blows up run plays for massive losses, he rips the ball out, and he snatches passes right out of the air. The singular, ridiculous knock on him from the critics was his athletic profile. Well, he utterly silenced those doubters in Indianapolis. He blew the doors off the NFL combined testing. He proved he is insanely athletic. So why on earth is he not a locked-in, guaranteed first-round selection? It drives me crazy. Look, I know I said we were targeting day 2 guys, and that is only because the league is foolish enough to let him slide that far. If the front office pulled the trigger on him at the 25th overall pick, I would not be mad in the slightest. Sure, the linebacker room looks decent right now after the aggressive free agency moves acquiring Devin Bush, bringing back DeMarco Jackson, keeping T.J. Edwards, and having Jack Sanborn for gritty depth. But if Rodriguez is the best player available, you sprint to the podium. If he miraculously falls to pick 57, it will go down as the absolute steal of the draft. He is an elite, high-level starter for the next decade. Mark my words. Question of the day. Would you sacrifice a guaranteed first-round talent to gamble on a high-ceiling edge rusher on day 2, or are you playing it safe with your premium picks? Get down in the comments below right now and drop your most controversial draft takes. Because if we are looking at the edge position, we have to talk about the absolute powerhouse out of Penn State, Dani Dennis-Sutton. I am an enormous fan of this kid. We are talking about a true, pure, 3-down defensive terror that you can casually scoop up in the middle of day 2. If he is sitting there at pick 57 or 60, you do not even hesitate, though there is no chance he makes it to pick 89. He has the ideal NFL size, shocking raw power, and a seriously deep bag of pass rush moves that he is only going to build upon. Penn State is an absolute factory for NFL-ready defensive destroyers. Unlike some freak athletes who test well at the combine but disappear on game day, like Keldrick Falk, whose awesome physical tools didn't always translate to elite production, Dennis-Sutton brings back-to-back 8.5 sack seasons and a massive 25 tackles for loss over the last 2 years to the table. He has a phenomenal frame and is an absolute enforcer on the line. He might not be the elite run-stuffer that Zion Young is right this second, but his pass rush upside is completely undeniable and arguably much better. Getting him 20 or 30 picks after those big names is incredible value. Listen, if we miss out on an elite edge rusher in the first round, I demand that we walk away with one of the day 2 monsters. Whether it is Dani Dennis-Sutton, Gabe Jackas, or Derek Moore, I will be a happy fan. They all naturally overlap in their skill sets. They all fit that aggressive Dennis Allen style scheme perfectly, bringing the length and violence needed to completely dent the pocket. Securing one of those three in the late 50s or early 60s come April 24th is the definition of a successful draft weekend. Now, let's pivot to the offensive side of the ball, because my frustration with the lack of hype around Mike Washington Jr. is reaching a massive boiling point. I have been shouting from the rooftops about this explosive runner since well before the combine, and then he goes to Indy and becomes an absolute workout warrior, testing wildly better than anyone even expected. Why is there not more noise about him being the undisputed RB2 in this class? I deeply respect Jadarian Price, and honestly, if you added everything up, you might lean slightly toward Price, and I wouldn't riot. But Washington simply has the much higher ceiling. He is bigger. He is faster. Both of these guys boast incredible tread left on their tires, but crucially, Washington has proven himself to be vastly superior as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Price didn't get those passing game reps at Notre Dame, but Washington has the legitimate potential to be a true, three-down back in the National Football League. He is a monstrous 6'1", 220-plus pound runaway train who runs with terrifying speed and shocking lateral quickness. His shuttle and three-cone times proved he isn't just a straight-line bruiser. When he sees a lane, he explodes through it, and if a defender gets in his way, he will absolutely run them over. It is glorious to watch. Yes, ball security has been a lingering issue. He put the ball on the turf 10 times in 5 years. That makes my blood pressure spike, and it absolutely has to be cleaned up. His pass protection on third downs also needs serious refinement, but that is common for rookies entering the league today. In a modern, creative offense, just think about what Ben Johnson does. A juiced-up, violent runner who can legitimately catch the football is a total nightmare for opposing defenses. The idea of the Bears surprising everyone and taking a skilled player like him on day 2 is incredibly exciting. Moving back to the secondary, we need to discuss the ultimate defensive chess piece, Trayanne Stokes out of Arizona. This guy is a defensive coordinator's dream come true. He can quite literally play every single position in your secondary. He lived in the nickel and played a bit of safety in college, but his frame, his length, and his blistering speed scream outside cornerback in this defensive scheme. He is shifty, his change of direction is elite, and he is a remarkably violent, willing tackler in space. I desperately want to see him drafted and immediately thrown into outside corner reps during training camp and OTAs just to test that immense potential. Give him 10 reps on the outside and see what happens. We have a glaring opening at the safety position right now, and drafting Stokes gives the defense incredible, immediate flexibility. You could comfortably plug him in at nickel and permanently transition Kyler Gordon to safety. When you pair a versatile, athletic ballhawk like Stokes with a defensive mind like Dennis Allen, magic happens on the football field. Yes, he is an older prospect. Yes, he battled some early injuries and bloomed a bit late in his collegiate career. But he is as plug-and-play as it gets. You draft him, you find his best fit, and he will immediately upgrade the ferocity of this defense. Finally, we have to talk about protecting the franchise. Caleb Tieran, the massive left tackle out of Northwestern. Does he have the astronomical ceiling of a guy like Mike Washington Jr. or the flashy athleticism of Trayanne Stokes? Probably not. But Caleb Tieran is the ultimate, rock-solid insurance policy, and getting a high-floor tackle like him at pick 57 or 60 is a massive win. We are talking about a 6'7", 320-pound multi-year starter who is incredibly polished as a pass protector. He moves with rare grace for a man of his mammoth size. Now, he isn't the strongest, most dominant, road-grading run blocker for his frame. He isn't going to blast defensive tackles backward. But he uses his elite mobility in space perfectly to mitigate that. If you are tossing and cracking behind him, Tieran will get out in front and completely erase linebackers. With the devastating injury to Ozzie Trapilo throwing the left tackle position into complete flux both short-term and long-term, drafting a guy who can legitimately push Braxton Jones for that starting job is an absolute necessity. Finding a starting caliber left tackle in the second round is pretty damn incredible. Before we wrap this up, I have to quickly touch on a few first-round pipe dreams. Players we probably won't land, but guys who would make this fan base absolutely erupt. If Jeremiah Love somehow made it to us, the injection of speed into this offense would be legendary. I am a massive believer in David Bailey as well. I would absolutely take him over Arlry right now because he is just more of a sure thing. Bailey's 24% pass rush win rate on massive volume in college is a stat you simply cannot ignore. If Kenyon Sadiq falls to 25, the temptation would be almost unbearable. I have been a massive supporter of the Oregon tight end, Jordan Tyson, all year, and assuming the medical evaluations clear, he could genuinely be the most dominant receiver in this entire class. And if Dylan Lemon miraculously falls right into our laps at 25, you sprint to the podium. You don't trade up, but if he is there, you make the pick immediately.